The Turkish media released a portion of the audio tapes of Jamal Khashoggi's murder. A Turkish news website has published quotes from the tapes which allegedly recorded journalist Jamal Khashoggi's final moments. The website reports that in the recordings, Khashoggi is heard saying, "Release my arm, what do you think you are doing?" when members of the Saudi hit squad grabbed his arm immediately after he entered the consulate. According to the website, the Washington Post journalist is also allegedly called a traitor and is told that he would be held to account by his killers. Pakistan's economic woes continue as the IMF team in Pakistan fails to reach to any consensus on a bailout package. Sources tell WION no bailout agreed between IMF team and Pakistan. The IMF team will make another trip to Pakistan and are hopeful to come to a conclusion in January 2019. But the biggest bone of contention is that Pakistan has excused himself from providing details of agreement and framework with China. Over 50 people have been killed in an explosion at a meeting of top clerics in Kabul in one of the deadliest attacks to strike the Afghan capital in months. Another 83 people are reported wounded in the blast, which targeted an ulema council gathering at a wedding hall to mark the Prophet Muhammad's birthday. The suicide bomber detonated his explosives inside a wedding hall at the community center in Kabul. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has declared November 21st as National Day of Mourning. Democrats called for an investigation into U.S. President Donald Trump's daughter and top White House advisor Ivanka Trump following reports that she repeatedly used a personal email account last year for government business. A White House review of Ivanka Trump's email found she used her personal account up to 100 times to contact other Trump administration officials. Use of a personal account for the government business could potentially violate a law requiring preservation of all presidential records. Protests in France against fuel tax rises continued as embattled President Emmanuel Macron defended a move. On Saturday, more than 250,000 French drivers blocked roads, with one protester killed in a road accident and hundreds more injured. Scattered protests could still be seen on roads across France on Tuesday, but drivers who dubbed themselves the Yellow Jackets for the neon vests they donned during the roadside emergencies. Macron, meanwhile, acknowledged that it's normal for people to express frustration. Problems continue to mount for Macron as French nurses took to the streets of Paris to protest their working conditions against healthcare reforms announced in September. Nurses in France say they feel forgotten and ignored, adding that the reforms plan to create 4,000 more healthcare assistant positions instead of providing more resources and competencies to nurses for them to properly do their jobs. The protest is part of a wider wave of protest across the country against French President Emmanuel Macron's proposed reforms. A commuter train derailed outside the Spanish city of Barcelona, killing one person and leaving 44 injured. A landslide triggered the crash between the northeastern towns. The train carried 131 people. The north of Spain has suffered heavy rains in the last few days, causing flooding and landslides. France's finance minister has called on Renault to appoint an interim replacement for Carlos Ghosn as chairman and chief executive following his arrest on suspicion of financial misconduct in Japan on Monday. France finance minister Le Maire said that he asked French tax authorities to examine Ghosn's affairs and they yet not found anything of particular note. Ghosn has been accused of serious misconduct by Nissan, the Japanese car company he helped to rescue from the brink of collapse almost 20 years ago. A U.S. judge has temporarily blocked an order by President Donald Trump that barred asylum for immigrants who enter the country illegally from Mexico. The latest courtroom defeat for Trump on immigration policy. U.S. District Judge John Tiger in San Francisco issued a temporary restraining order against asylum rules. The Tiger's order takes effect immediately, applies nationwide, and lasts until at least December 19, when the judge scheduled a hearing to consider a more long-lasting injunction. North Korea demolished a guard post in the demilitarized zone after the two Koreas agreed to completely destroy near their heavily fortified border last month. The move follows a military pact at a summit last month in North Korea that called for a halt to all hostile acts. As an initial step, the neighbors agreed to demolish 11 guard posts within 1 kilometer of each side of the border and withdraw equipment and personnel stationed there by the end of November. Dozens of Iranians protest in front of the United Nations office in Tehran in support of the Yemen people. The World Health Organization says nearly 10,000 people have been killed in Yemen since the Saudi intervention in March 2015. But right groups believe the toll may be 5 times higher. A sitting MP of the Central African Republic, Alfred Yakatom, will appear at the International Criminal Court on Friday. Yakatom was transferred to The Hague and will face trial for charges ranging from war crimes, murder, deportation and torture of Muslims. Yakatom will not be expected to enter a plea but will have an opportunity to make a statement if he wishes. Thousands of protesters gathered in front of the Chilean presidential palace in Santiago for a demonstration after the death of a young indigenous man. Camilo Catrillanca, a member of the Mapuche community, was shot and killed last Wednesday. 2 senior people officials have also of the police resigned after the discovery that officers destroyed video showing the shooting of water cannons and tear gas were used to try and disperse protesters. Hundreds of protesters gather in the Peruvian capital of Lima to protest former President Alan Garcia's move to seek asylum in the Uruguayan embassy. Garcia entered the embassy at night amidst heavily protest and aims to seek asylum in the embassy after being barred from leaving the country. The former premier has been accused of taking bribes from a Brazilian construction company in exchange for government contracts to build a metro line in the Peruvian capital. Hundreds of stuffed toys were placed on the steps of the Colombian Congress to protest child abuse. Protesters demanded that abusers be brought to justice and that children receive the emotional support they need to heal. Colombia has been one of the worst rates of child sexual abuse, with an average of 48 new cases of sexual abuse being reported every single day. Health officials in the US and Canada have warned people to avoid eating romaine lettuce because of a new E. coli outbreak. The US Food and Drug Administration said it was working with officials in Canada on the outbreak, which has left 32 people across 11 states sick in the US. In Canada, at least 18 people have been affected by the outbreak. Nearly 4,000 people have been evacuated from areas around Guatemala's Fuego volcano, which began violently erupting. The volcano spewed out dangerous flows of fast-moving clouds of hot ash, lava and gas early on Monday, and more than 2,000 people had taken refuge in shelters so far. There were no immediate reports of injuries. This is the fifth eruption so far this year of the volcano, which is one of the most active in Central America. Firefighters in California continue to search through the rubble and destruction in the fire-ravaged zones of California. Nearly 79 people have been killed and over 700 still remain missing in the deadliest wildfire to have hit the state. Firefighters and rescuers are racing against time to recover bodies as weather forecasts predict rain for the state in days to come. Supporters of late Spanish dictator Francisco Franco gathered outside Madrid on Tuesday to mark the 43rd anniversary of his death. They laid flowers and prayed by his tomb. Franco took part after a bitter civil war between 1936 and 1939 and died on 20th of November 1975. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez wants to remove Franco's remains from the valley but has faced fierce opposition from far-right supporters and Franco's family. Over 30 years after the 1984 riots, the Delhi High Court has awarded death sentence to convict Yashpal Singh, while another convict, Naresh Sherawat, has been given life imprisonment. The duo were convicted of killing Hardev Singh and Avtar Singh in Mahipalpur area of South Delhi during the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. The conviction is the first in the anti-Sikh rights cases reopened by the Special Investigation Team, which was set up in 2015. The Delhi police had closed the case in 1994 for want of evidence. An Indian-American woman has been elected as the president of the powerful students' body of the prestigious Harvard University. 20-year-old Shruti Paliniappan has been elected as president of the Harvard University Undergrad Council. A sperm whale found dead in a national park in Indonesia had nearly 6 kilograms of plastic waste, including 115 cups in its stomach. The cause of the death of whale was not known, but park officials found plastic bottles, bags, sandals, and a sack with more than 1,000 pieces of string in the whale's stomach in June. The death of a pilot whale in Thailand with 80 pieces of plastic rubbish in its stomach garnered headlines locally, but drew more attention outside the country. In an annual Thanksgiving traditional, President Donald Trump has used the power of his office to keep a pair of turkeys off the holiday table. Trump's poultry pardon means the two turkeys, a 39-pound bird named Peas and a 41-pounder named Carrots, will get to live the rest of their lives at a Virginia farm. First Lady Melania Trump joined her husband for the act of mercy carried out during a light-hearted ceremony in the White House Rose Garden. President George H.W. Bush established the annual turkey pardon tradition in 1989 by sparing a 50-pound bird. Britain's Prince Charles attended a special tea party at St. James Palace organized in honor of the 80th anniversary of the Kinder Transport. The Kinder Transport was an organized evacuation of predominantly Jewish children from Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia and Poland to the UK in the 9 months before the outbreak of the Second World War. Archaeologists digging in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii have discovered rare fresco depicting the mythological sexual encounter between the Spartan queen Leda and the god Zeus in the form of a swan. The fresco was discovered on the wall of a lavish Roman house that had been buried in ash and debris along with the rest of Pompeii when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE. British artist Banksy's work will be up for viewing at a public exhibition in Milan until April next year. This is the first time the artist's work will be up at a gallery for public viewing. Banksy, a street artist, is more famously known for his mysterious and elusive persona. And last month, the prankster artist made headlines after his painting self-destructed itself upon auction at Sotheby's in London. Britain's Duke and Duchess of Sussex attended the Royal Variety performance at the London Palladium as guest of honour. The royal couple met performers including the London cast of the musical Hamilton and members of the band Take That, as well as executives from the Royal Variety charity. The yearly event is organised in aid of the Royal Variety charity, which Britain's Queen Elizabeth is a patron.